Fall is just around the corner. You've got your pumpkin spice lattes and your cozy sweaters, and you're just missing that moody fall photo to post on your Instagram. Trust me, it's amazing, and I'm gonna help get you there. Well, welcome back to the very next Learn It Quick episode. My name is Brian with Mood Sound Design. If you had a moment, that would be awesome if you gave a little tap on that like button for me, as well as subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you know when we upload. Also, if you're looking for amazing music for your videos, check out the description and go to moodsounddesign.com. We offer a ton of handwritten music, all for filmmakers, videographers, and YouTubers, and we're just $6 a month. That gives you unlimited access to use our music on any project. I'm not sure what you're waiting for, but you should definitely check us out. Now, before we jump into Lightroom to show you my editing process, I want to give you a few in-camera tips to make sure you're on the right track. Otherwise, a lot of this editing stuff is kind of pointless. First of all, make sure you're in some kind of rainy, moody environment. If it's bright, sunny daylight out and you're trying to capture some sort of mood, well, obviously you're not going to be able to do that. The more sunlight you have while you're taking pictures typically means the more vibrant color. That moody term really refers to a lot less color, a lot more of the grayscale involved, and a lot more darker shadows in your images. So if you can get to somewhere that's rainy and cloudy, that's going to help quite a bit. Secondly, and this might come across as a bit obvious, but make sure you've got some kind of fall colors added into your images. Oranges, yellows, and greens are a great place to start, and especially those yellows and greens, you can do a lot to manipulate those to more of the fall colors when you're editing in Lightroom. So keep those things in mind, and you're already at least 50% of the way there to getting that fall mood, cozying up with some hot cocoa, lighting a fire, snuggling your puppy, and pretending like you're reading a book. Now let's jump into Lightroom, and I'm going to show you my editing process on a couple photos here. Both of these images are from a recent trip to Alaska. As you can see, it's clearly cloudy, it's rainy, so you can already see there's a significant amount of mood there. So let's start with this first image here, and the very first step in my workflow is adding a preset. Now I currently have a preset called Moody Fall, and I'm actually gonna give you that for free. Just go to the link in the description and download that preset. Now if you are downloading that preset, it would be pretty amazing if you also subscribe to the channel. You know, I'm giving you free stuff, so don't be too selfish now. I mean, come on. So let's go and throw on this Moody Fall preset and see where that gets us with this first image here. And already you can see a ton of the aesthetic come through with the image. Just that one preset's already doing quite a bit of magic. But now that I've added this preset, the very next thing that I'm gonna do is go down the right-hand column and adjust white balance, the basic settings, the colors, all that stuff. So let's start at the very top here with the white balance. I like the warmth of this, but I feel like it needs just a little bit more. So let's go ahead and bump this up to, let's try 6,800 or so. We're already getting a little bit more warmth. I'm not gonna add any contrast, and I currently like the exposure where it's at. It's already pretty underexposed image, so if I made it even darker here, it just gets a little bit too shadowed in for me. So let's keep that exposure where it's at. The highlights, I'd like to bring out a little bit more detail here in the windows. So let's go ahead and pop those down to about -50. So I've bumped the highlights down a bit, and I actually do want to bring up some of those shadows. So let's actually make it pop to maybe about right there. I'm not going to touch the whites or the blacks. Those are fine. Maybe we'll bump the clarity up just a little bit more. The presets added a bit of clarity. We'll give it a little bit more love there. And I currently like the vibrance and the saturation. So again, that preset's already doing that work for me with some of those sliders. This tone curve here is looking pretty flat. I'm bringing up those shadows just a little bit here on the bottom end, just to give it a little bit of kind of a matte faded look. It's not too much, but it's just enough to just give it that aesthetic that I'm going for there. So moving on here, let's take a look at our HSL, hue, saturation, and luminance. And this is where the preset is probably doing most of the work, starting with these reddish to greenish colors here. The reds and oranges are staying pretty centered. Oranges are bumped over to the yellows just barely, but these yellow colors that you're seeing come through in the trees here in this image, I've really pushed them over to more of the orange side, and this is what really drives that more fall look for the image. If I bump my yellows all the way over towards the green, all of a sudden it looks like a rainy day in like maybe the summer. So that makes a huge difference there where my yellows are. So make sure you keep that in mind. The greens, I could push those over a little bit more. Maybe I will push them over a little bit more so they're not so green. They're a bit more on the yellow side as well. And then my aquas are staying a bit centered, and then my blues are coming over a little bit more towards the aqua. Purples and magentas are also doing a similar thing. Now, this is just the hue sliders. Let's take a look at the saturation, and you can see my greens, aquas, blues, purples, and magentas are all pretty much desaturated. So the only real colors that I want to come through are the yellows, oranges, and reds. So those are going to keep my skin tones where they need to be, as well as all of those fall colors that I'm working with in the image. They're all right there. The only other color besides these three that's really coming through is that more of that grayscale that you get here in the clouds. Next up is the luminance. There's not a ton happening here. Really, I'm just making these oranges pop just a little bit, and I've deepened some of those yellows. And you can see deepening the luminance and some of these colors can really help to just give it a little bit more mood, taking those colors and just making them feel a little bit more deep, a little bit more dark. That's what my hue, saturation, and luminance is doing, and that plays a huge role in achieving these colors. Let's take a look at the color grading. I'm just barely adding a tiny bit of warmth to the shadows. You can see my saturation is at 4, so that's barely doing anything. I'm not adding any colors to the midtones, and to my highlights, I'm just barely adding a bit more warmth, a bit more on the yellow side. My saturation is at 7 there, and it's just barely adding a little touch of warmth to those highlighted areas. Moving on here, it's really just sharpening and grain. I've sharpened this image a little bit to really help bring out the detail in Allie's face here, as well as some of the raindrops there on the window. I mean, that detail is amazing. Also, the Canon R5 is amazing. Just a quick peek at my settings. I did shoot this wide open with the aperture at f1.4 to really get that shallow depth of field. 35mm prime, ISO was 320, and my shutter was 6/40th of a second. And then I have no grain on this image. If you want to add a little grain, if you're going for a little bit more of that filmic vintage feel, add some grain on your images. Now the next step here is adding the graduated filters to this image. The first graduated filter is going to start from this left to right side, and I'm just going to bring it right behind her beanie here, and I want to just darken this whole area. So we're just going to drop this exposure down a little bit. I'm actually going to cool this area down a tiny bit. Now with this graduated filter open, if I drag a new one on, it's literally going to drag on the same exact settings as what I just had. Now I'm going to add one more graduated filter that's going to come all the way over. I'm just going to actually warm this part up a little bit. Now, yes, I know that this graduated filter is slightly counterintuitive to this one, so I might go back and pull this down even a little bit more. And so we've got a little bit more warmth coming through on Allie, and I'm actually going to just bring that warmth back a little bit. I don't need it that warm. Let's try bumping those highlights down, maybe right there, and maybe we'll just bring up a bit more clarity. The very last thing I'll do is bring up a graduated filter from the bottom here. We're just gonna darken this area here just a tiny bit. The image is already quite dark, and I'm using these graduated filters to make certain areas even darker, and the whole point is to make the eyes focus on what I want the viewer to focus on. Well, and there you go. Look at those moody tones just coming through. I might just Command C and copy my edits, and we're just gonna check off the brush and the graduated filters, turn off all those local adjustments. We're gonna copy that edit, and let's go over to this image here, and let's see what that edit does on an image like this. You know, it's not bad. It makes it a bit more warmer than I'd like, so I can just adjust that white balance. Maybe we'll bring the shadows down a little bit here. We can take a graduated filter, bring it across the top, bump some of these highlights and shadows here. Why don't we bring one from the bottom, drag that up, drop those shadows down. Do we want to warm that up? Warm it up just a tiny bit. And look at that. And we've got these two beautiful images here. This is easily one of my favorite edits that I've done. I'm going to remind you once more that if you want this preset, Moody Fall, all you got to do is go to the description, and it's a Dropbox link. Click on it and download your preset. All I'll ask in return is you hit that subscribe button. Well, friends, thanks so much for watching. Go try this on your pumpkin spice latte pics, or the pics where you're in that cozy sweater on a rainy day, and get those moody fall colors going. I'll see you guys on the next video, which is going to come up real soon. So stay tuned. Peace.